Good morning. Our subject for today is mainly mass movement of people. So let's start. First question. What kind of numbers are we looking at regarding mass movement of people as our planet continues to warm, say further 1 degree C?
Well, we need to look at the numbers. If you consider that about 50% of the world's population exists on less than $2.50 a day, any instability in food prices, I mean, these are really big numbers. It's just not those factors. You've also got to look at extreme climate conditions where you have drought areas, you have flooding areas, continual forest fires, and heat waves. People will be on the move. I mean, these are really big numbers. And if we look at Europe in recent years, we're only looking at numbers of, say, 800,000 to 1 million people. But these numbers will be dwarfed.
Okay. So will the poor suffer for more than the wealthy?
Well, initially, but there is an ironic with this, because a poor person hasn't much to lose in some respects. If somebody is, let's say, an extreme example, living on the roads, they forage and scavenge or whatever. So when this hits home to somebody who lives in a house, for example, they have more to lose. So initially, of course, the poor will suffer more.
What are the biggest issues regarding mass movement of people?
We're simply not ready for it. That's the answer. We're not ready for these kind of numbers. We just can't. We're just not ready.
Okay. Do you think countries will close their borders or welcome climate refugees?
Oh, they close their borders. That will happen. That's a foregone conclusion.
First question. Do you think it's morally the right things to do if people are suffering?
It's the kind of situation, most of us have seen the Titanic film, where you've got the boat that is full with people, and people are, swimming around wanting help in the water, and if the boat goes, the whole thing will collapse. Sure. So it's not so much of a moral issue. That's kind of out the window. And if you look at mankind's history, it's been a bloodbath to this very day anyway. So it's no longer a moral issue in some respects.
Okay. Do you think knowing what we do now regarding the impacts of anthropogenic climate change, mankind would do the same thing all over again?
Oh, certainly. We keep doing the same things. We never learn. Oh, definitely.
You mentioned in the first video SRN regarding certified ulcer injection. Why do you think it's a bad idea?
You've got to remember, when we get to this point, it's not something that governments will implement. It's something that people would demand, because we're going to reach that point where people are aware of the implications, and they would demand this. But particle injection, it doesn't last particularly very long in the atmosphere anyway. It's a process that you need to continue. But the ramifications or implications of it are huge. I mean, stratospheric warming or high altitude warming will continue. There's also an issue with the ozone as well. There are other issues. It's not uniformed. And to move the temperature, let's say, 3 degrees this way, and you carry on down that road, and you realise down that road is not what you want. And you've got to remember, this is being done to give time. Sure. And CO2 has got a longevity in the atmosphere anyway. So it's not going to be a thing for a year or two. We're talking about decades. But you get down that road and you see the turbulence within the atmosphere and everything else, and the implications of that. You could quickly retreat from that. And if we haven't had abrupt climate change by then, to move the climate 3 degrees one way and then shift it another way, and we're talking about over a year or 2 years, it just won't cope. Sure. It will bring abrupt, if we haven't already, it will bring abrupt change.
Yeah. Okay. You talked about drawing down CO2 from the atmosphere and storage.
you've got to understand the mammoth, the task. It's comparable to building the ISS space station, let's say every 3 or 4 weeks to the end of the century, or 20,000 nuclear power stations with thousands of miles of pipeline. I like to think of it of sending 300 people to Mars and returning them safely back. I mean, it's a huge task. And that's only one part of it, the building of it. You've got to store it. We are talking about billions and billions of tons of CO2. And you've got to remember, originally this has come from a lump of coal or some oil and liquid. But to store this gas is problematic. I mean, it's a huge undertaking. And not only that, this should already been in place some 23 years ago. It's not going to stop where we're going, but it's some kind of valve in place. We're still going to be impacted anyway. Sure. But there's no money in this. You've got to understand this. It's dead money, and it would dwarf the Manhattan Project. I mean, it would, and that is how big the scale of it is. It's not an easy thing to do. But if you want the climate that we've left in the 1970s, it's the only way. There's no other way. You need to get the atmospheric concentration of CO2 back down to 350 or 340 parts per million. There's no other way.
Lastly, could we not simply just reforest our planet?
I mean, this is a huge undertaking. You've got to look at the numbers. Let's say from 1850 to 1950, 50% of the tropical forest we've lost already. That's gone. And if we look at the numbers from 1950 and what is expected to, let's say, 2030 or 2040, another 30%, because we've already lost some from the 1950, another 30% of that is going to be lost as well. And the 20% remaining, 10% is estimated, 10% of that would be in poor health anyway. We're talking about land masses the size of 2.5 size, maybe 3 times the size of India. It still won't stop where we're going, but what you have for future generations on a global scale, reforestation on a global scale, you have one part of the biosphere that is shored up, because there's a lot of weaknesses now. Mm-hmm. Climate change is hitting a lot of parts of the biosphere, but for future generations you will have something in place maybe to build on. I mean, of course you can have areas where you would have to put drought tolerant trees and fire tolerant trees, because we know certain areas around the planet what we can basically expect. So that would have to be implicated, obviously, but it's a huge task. I mean, it's even to get to the point where we can combat deforestation, but to replace the damage we've done, but it's possible. The point is here. A lot of people will say there's not enough land, but of course, radical changes. I mean, bang, tomorrow you stop the livestock industry. I mean, that frees up so much land. But these are so radical changes, and the implications, economical implications of this. But here's the thing. What's going to happen as we continue down this road? We are going to be forced into some of these situations anyway, whether we like it or not. So it's better for mankind to gradually build into these situations rather than be on a knife edge and basically collapse.
Good. Thank you. Enjoying talking to you.
You're welcome.